The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is back at it here on a Tuesday. If you catch us via the podcast later in the week, remember we do stream live, usually on a Tuesday night, starting about 8 p.m. Central Time, and much to get to here. As we're proudly brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com, Gann Asphalt.com. Chris Jones said he was sick. However, Brett Veach and Steve Spagnuolo certainly thought he was going to be at the ring ceremony. Who do we believe? Can you pick up the phone and call somebody? We'll hear what Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes had to say about Chris Jones not being at minicamp as well. When does the Chris Jones deal get done? Did anybody change their opinion because he no-showed the ring ceremony? The Chiefs Super Bowl ring, thumbs up, thumbs down. We like it. Anything we change? How good can this defense be? What's the floor and ceiling for it? Patrick Mahomes claps back at Jamar Chase. Are we looking at the biggest and best rivalry in sport, Chiefs versus Bengals? The Netflix show, Quarterback, is coming to a the Netflix streaming service soon. We hear from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes about what to expect, why Andy Reid green-lighted it. Not exactly something he's used to doing, but he did it this time. We'll hear why. It's all coming up next here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You're listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Gann Asphalt and Concrete is now hiring for all positions: project manager, dump truck drivers, operators, and crew members. Starting pay up to $30 per hour based on experience, with paid time off and insurance, just to name a few of the benefits. Check out GannAsphalt.com for more info. Now, here are the hosts of the best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
Back at it here on a Tuesday. Thanks for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Whenever you can fit us into your busy schedule, we do appreciate it. Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager. My name is Soren Petro, talking some Chiefs football. And how about it, gentlemen? Let's get things started with the fact that Chris Jones no-showed the ring ceremony. He tweeted out to a fan that said, why wasn't he there? He said he was sick. Simple as that. Do we have any issue with this, Jeff? Should this be a bigger cause for concern when he misses the party, not just the minicamp?
No, I don't think it's that big of a deal. He probably was sick of not seeing what he wants to see numbers-wise as far as contract offers coming from the Chiefs. That's more of what it sounds like, but I don't know where – if you're not showing up for minicamp, you're not there for the OTAs. He showed up for the White House thing, if I remember correctly, right? He was there for that.
Yep.
It's I don't think it's a huge issue. I think once you've skipped minicamp, you pretty much announce how you feel about things. Whether you're sick or not, it's going to get lumped into the I'm unhappy about where the team stands on my contract situation. I do know that when he won the Defensive Player of the Year award at the Chiefs one-on-one deal, they had to beg him to get on the plane to come up here to pick up the award and be at the ceremony because he was down in Miami enjoying himself and didn't want to do that. So I can understand how guys get in their feelings and get comfortable being where they're at. And look, I feel it's not much ado about nothing because you want to be able to lock him up to a long-term deal, but I also understand the dynamics here. And he's still under contract. Whatever happens this summer, he's going to be playing football for the Chiefs this fall.
Yeah. Eric, does this add any layer of concern to you?
No, I don't think that there's any like deadlines that are being imposed on the Chris Jones situation, right? Like I think it'd be different right now if it was training camp that he was missing and the ring ceremony was during training camp and he was, not a part. To Jeff's point, unlike the last time, he's under contract, so he can't really hold out without paying a ton of money. The players union was kind of bad in that regard, I think, in the last CBA. I wouldn't worry about it until you get into August and he's not showing up for training camp. But I also don't know what the hurry is either. Like, they have 6 weeks or whatever until it really matters, 5 weeks. And so we might just be asking this question sort of every week for a while. As long as he, the question of whether or not he's going to show up is answered with a no. So I'm not worried, but it is interesting that they haven't gotten anything resolved yet.
I will say before you go, Soren, maybe you could speak to this. Let's not forget the Tyrann Mathieu saga of 2 years ago when we all thought he's going to get a big deal. It's all coming. And next thing you know, he's not getting a big deal and he's going playing somewhere else. Like, I do think there are factors in here that are very interesting.
So so are you saying you think that that's in play?
I'm saying that I think Chris Jones's expectation of what his number should be is much higher than what the Chiefs think it should be. And I think the Chiefs are in a position where after winning 2 championships and letting some key players go, they probably are thinking about the idea of what do we want to commit to him for age, whatever, 31, 32 of his contract. I'm sure Chris Jones wants a lot of money up front, and I'm sure they're probably thinking that doesn't work that well for us, what we want to do here. And so I think it's an interesting dynamic.
I do too. And somebody asked me, like, how concerned am I? Do I think it's, on what level? And I think there's a 10% chance that it goes south, right? I think 9 out of 10 times everything works. But I also think if I think there's a 10% chance, I would probably double that there's things that I don't know that are at work. I think Chris Jones is a sensitive guy, right? Like I think we saw the inner workings of Chris Jones with the last contract negotiations, going on Colin Cowherd saying, what do I have to do? I think that's how he feels. And I think this is the experience of having been through it. It ultimately worked out. Hey, Chris, you remember you were upset, but we told you to just stay with it. When a deadline rolls around, that's when everything goes. He's been through that, so I think he's more prepared for it. But I do think he's the kind of guy that's hurt by it. I mean, I think he's a genuinely nice person, and he expects to be dealt with that way, and that's not always how business works. And so I think a lot of guys like him can get their feelings hurt. I'm with you. Let's hear some of the comments because we did have our last chance to hear from guys like Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and we're going to hear from the ring ceremony. This is on the 15th. Today's the 20th, so this would have been 1918, Thursday, maybe Wednesday. I can't remember when was the ring ceremony. Anyway, whatever. 5 days.
Thursday.
Thursday. Okay. This is Thursday. Andy Reid asked about Chris Jones not being at minicamp.
Yeah, so Chris wasn't here, and kind of like last year, same type of deal. So that's his choice. He chose not to be here. I'm sure he'll be at training camp.
I just want to make sure I understood you correctly on Chris. You said you're sure he'll be at training camp.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about anything. I'm not sure I'm going to be there, but I mean, I got to get through. I wish I could predict that, but I think he's, there's a chance he's not. We'll see.
So, I mean, I know it's Brett's deal, really, but you have your feelings are pretty good right now on that front as far as camp goes?
Yeah, I don't even deal with it. I mean, I let Brett and his group deal with it. If you're there, you're there, and if you're not, we keep going. It's one of those deals. So. They'll work all that out. They're communicating, so that's important.
What's your communication with Chris been about all this?
Make sure you're in shape.
All right, funny little ha-has in there worked in, but a couple things I think are of note. One, he said he's sure he'll be there. Sam McDowell, columnist for the Kansas City Star, jumped on that immediately and said, so you're sure he'll be there? He's like, all right, well, wait a minute. I'm not going to be sure. Todd Lebo from my station, Sports Radio 810 WHB, said, listen, just want to be clear, though, you feel good that he'll be there. He backed away from that as well. Said chance that he is, chance that he's not, right? He came 180 degrees after he was questioned about what his original statement was. And the other thing I'll note is that, well, he wasn't at minicamp, same as last year. Well, no, he's in the final year of a deal, and you're clearly engaged in a contract negotiation, right? That wasn't the case last year. So it's not the same as last year. There's takeaways from what Andy Reid had to say there in that back and forth, Jeff.
Well, like you said, he's talking in circles because he wants this to be done yesterday. But Andy Reid is as much as grandfatherly as Andy Reid is, and he's the big, soft, lovable players coach now. People forget what he was like in Philadelphia, where he was hardcore about these kind of things. And if you weren't playing by his rule book in terms of numbers and contract, you were gone. He had no problem getting rid of veteran guys back in the day. And so that's why I feel like I think Chris Jones probably overstated the situation when he went on social media and talked about, I want to be a Chief for life and they're taking care of me and this and that. And I think now he's stuck in a really difficult place because, okay, how badly do you want to do that? I'm sure the Chiefs are saying, well, if you want to do it and be team friendly, like the quarterback's doing it, like the tight end is doing it, we're down for it. But if you want to do it at a place where Alex Johnson just said you're 29 years old, you're wanting a third contract, look around the room. How many guys in this team are getting third contracts? And so that's how they're looking at it. And Chris Jones is saying, you see what Buffalo gave Von Miller? Did you see what kind of market could be out there for me if I was a free agent coming off a defensive player of the year candidacy type of season? What I could get out there after this year? That's where this thing is sitting. And I brought up Tyrann Mathieu because he was getting a deal until his play began to decline a little bit. And all of a sudden he wasn't getting a deal. And so that's where I'm wondering if this goes into the season without him having a deal, is he gone after this? Because I think that's
I think that's a great point. His play has not declined. 15.5 sacks last year. He was the number 1 rated defensive tackle according to PFF. Eric, let me play another one. I'll let you react to a little bit more. This is a little more typical what you expect. Here's Mahomes. He was asked about his thoughts on Chris Jones not being there.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's part of the business. I think Chris knows that we love him here. He's been a part of this team for a long time. He's one of the main reasons that we've had the success that we've had. He's been that leader on the defense. He's made a lot of big plays, and it seems like the biggest moments, and you want those guys on your team. And so, like you said, it's part of the business. It's the off season, even though you're getting better. I'm sure Chris is working, and he knows the defense that he needs to do. And the hope is that everything's good by training camp, and we're able to come in and just roll, and that's just part of it. And that's what makes this team so great is whenever guys like that have to go handle their business, we let them handle it. When they jump back in the building, we get back to right where we left off.
Just thoughts on the quarterback saying the right things, right? But, I think it's of note that he's having to answer. And I always find that interesting. The big boys got to answer for each other when they're not there. And it is a little bit of, while they get it's a business, it's like, oh, God, here's one more thing I got to answer at the podium. But just your thoughts on Mahomes and Reid's reaction?
Yeah, I think it's important that Pat's management for this team, so he should have to answer this question, right? He's the quarterback. His contract is, sets the table for everything that everybody is doing. So I like that he answers. I think it's a bit old school to say worry about everybody else because it is a team and it's a financial thing. And I think Mahomes is very intentional there. He said similar things about Orlando Brown. He really liked Orlando Brown. I think he's shown a willingness to accept the business part of this industry. He accepted it with open arms last year when they traded his best wide receiver and he went out and won a Super Bowl. So I think there's nothing that Mahomes says that I could, he's giving a mandate to leadership to sign Jones. I don't think that'll ever happen. I think he really very much gets it. But Jeff made a great point in the last, idea. Like Travis Kelce doesn't make as much as Darren Waller APY. Patrick Mahomes doesn't make as much as some of these other guys APY. The idea that the Chiefs, and granted, like a lot of these contracts below Aaron Donald have turned out pretty well for Kansas City, but this idea that the Chiefs are like, well, I guess we have to, no, the precedent has been set for this team to have, the star players playing on modest salaries relative to how good they are in the league circles.
That's an interesting point. All right, let's take it to the next day. It's the ring ceremony. Right. I think this is at least of note. I'm not going to say it's a problem. I'm not trying to scream out red flag or anything, but I think this is of note. This is Brett Veach on the red carpet. I would love to hear Jeff. You were at the red carpet, right?
I was there.
Throngs of fans.
Yeah.
Tens
12.
of
I think 12, 13. I thought was out
12
there.
or 13
Total.
fans. Okay. Not exactly a Hollywood red carpet, but the Chiefs red carpet. This is Brett Veach. I think on I know the question's on the Spagnuolo one. This is Brett Veach answering the question about Chris Jones not being there.
We're in constant communication. I'd be shocked if Chris isn't here. I mean, this is his type of party right here. So, but we have great communication. And look, there's a lot of time before camp, so feel good about where we're going to be with Chris, and we'll get to celebrate tonight and have a good time, and then break tomorrow. And I'm sure we'll have great dialogue from now to start training camp, and look forward to Chris being here and not just for next year, but for a long time.
Do you have a timeline in your head where you feel comfortable getting stuff done?
No, not really. I mean, listen, we have a long history together, and we have a great relationship with his agent. So, these things usually get worked out right during the first start of camp. So, we anticipate the same, and we'll see how it goes.
Let's hear right after that. So you heard him. This is his type of party. I'm not surprised if he's here. Let's hear Steve Spagnuolo. You'll hear the question about Chris Jones not being there.
Do you have contact with him at all during this time?
I will see him tonight. Listen, Chris is part of the family here, and we leave the business part for the business people, but I give him a big hug when he comes in here tonight. Did the same thing at the White House. We miss him, but hopefully that'll all get worked out.
All right. Two dudes that talk like they thought he was coming. Right now, again, he later tweets out that he was sick. They do have phones and they dial out. I would think that if you're going to no-show a ring ceremony, you give somebody a heads up. I don't know. Maybe got food poisoning, got, ridiculously. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know the man's life. But again, in my opinion, not a problem, but something you file away. Jeff, you look at it the same way? Or you see it differently?
You used an interesting word earlier when we kicked off this conversation about his sensitivity. That was the word you used, his sensitive guy.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And so I'll give you this. You know what happened on June 6th last year?
No.
Aaron Donald signed the biggest contract in the history of football for a defensive player. June 6th. Took all of 4 months from a Super Bowl win?
Right.
Biggest contract. You know who is living in Miami near Chris Jones probably, or in the same vicinity?
Aaron Donald.
Tyreek Hill.
Oh, Tyreek Hill. Yeah. Okay.
So, I'm starting to paint a picture here of people who might be. What's that?
Punch from him.
Yeah. I'm just thinking people who would be in his ear or things he may be seeing that could add to that sensitivity that he's feeling. I think Chris Jones is not going to undersell himself here. As much as he would love to be with the Chiefs, he's not going to do it on a discount. I would be shocked if he's willing to do that.
What were you saying, Eric? I couldn't make out what you're saying.
Oh, hopefully he didn't hit any strays from Tyreek Hill. Is that too soon or?
I guess not. You said it. Your reaction to the two of them not knowing he's there.
I don't know, man. It's funny. I just feel like some of these guys just show up to do their job. It's sort of funny. I talk about Mahomes because he's management. He kind of knows the whole thing. I think a guy like Spags is a rung below. The heck does the defensive coordinator need to know if the defensive lineman shown up for the ring ceremony? I don't know. What do you think?
First of all, I can't tell if Veach did know.
And he was just playing it.
And he's like, this. I wouldn't be surprised if he's here. This is his type of party. Was there hey, listen, he's not coming. We know he's not coming. Let's just act like we think he's going to be here. It's the fastest way to get through these questions. Which, by the way, why do you employ? The Chiefs employed an outside PR firm so that their PR department could enjoy the festivities tonight. They worked hard. They're part of the organization as well. They deserve a ring ceremony. But they still work for you. Why'd you have this if you don't want to talk to anyone?
Yeah, it was. Typically, this is the first time I've ever seen a team do this, where they actually have a red carpet ceremony before a private event to get their rings. Usually, you go to a posh resort or a country club, and you do it after mini camps, June, July, or whatever. To do it after minicamp practice seemed kind of weird. To do it in that fashion seems they were creating an environment where you were going to have these kinds of situations. Like, I didn't see Clyde Edwards-Helaire there either. I don't know if he was in the building or not, but some guys, may have come in the back way, didn't do the red carpet thing. But it felt as if there wasn't a ton of organization about who was going to be there, at least on that. I'm sure people RSVP'd, whatever. But, when you're seeing Juju Smith, you're seeing Smith-Schuster, you're seeing Eric Bieniemy was there, guys who are no longer here, Juan Thornhill. But I didn't see Mecole Hardman, didn't see Frank Clark. So I don't know if there was a sense of, hey, just shoot me my ring. I'm good. How many people were into this vibe? Again, Chris's situation, I imagine those guys probably didn't have any idea who was going to be there, who wasn't going to be there, given the timing of it, the practice, the things that were going on, and just jumping right into it. I think if you're doing it later in the summer, you probably have a better sense of, is this going to be a problem or not?
Whether Chris Jones was sick or not, his answer plays better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire agreeing to a fashion show.
Yeah.
Before
so my point is, you wouldn't have known he was there if they didn't do the red carpet thing, right?
Yeah. Yes.
You wouldn't have known.
100%. So I
But
don't know.
does it benefit the Chiefs at all? Like, I don't think it benefits the Chiefs to keep us in the dark about whether or not he's there. I guess do you guys view this budding? Do you view this as an issue? Like, I think both sides kind of want to. Like, well, I don't foresee it as a problem.
I'm like I said, I'll go back to the point I made. 20% is my level of concern. I think 80% it all gets done. But I do think the point that both Jeff and I think are getting at is that I think there is the potential for it to go sideways. Until it gets done, there's the potential for it to go sideways. I mean, we've seen Chris Jones be agitated and irritated at this team. All signs look like things are going well. I think if he was at the ring ceremony, wouldn't you say that would seem like a more if he came to minicamp and was at the ring ceremony, wouldn't you say that things were progressing better, that they were closer to getting it done? I would.
No.
Oh, I definitely would.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, Eric, what a better way to ask this is, what do you think Chris Jones should get, and what do you think he will settle for to be here? Keeping in mind,
I think Chris should be looking for 24 to 26 million a year. I think it ends up being around 23.
I don't think it gets done for 23.
No way. He is going to be at least the second highest paid defensive tackle.
Yeah.
I think Quinnen Williams and the Jets are creating a problem here. Things could be moving along further. I think all contracts need a deadline. I think that deadline will come up. And when he done about now is my recollection. When it was. So, it was before camp that they got it done. I think if we get to training camp, it's not going as well as it did last time. And last time he was vocal about it not going well. So, I think we've got some obvious mile markers along the way. If it gets closer to camp than it was last time, then I think you could say it's not progressing as well. Right?
Yeah, I guess Simmons is 23 and a half. So it'd have to be above that. And then whatever Quinnen Williams gets, I think will have to be the mark. But I don't see this as big of an issue. Like, I think that it's something that he probably has to do to try to get a new contract. And all it does in my opinion, is push the conversation forward, right? Like, it's almost better to sort of get it out of the way that it's not okay, I guess, for both.
I think the Chiefs, I'm going off the Chiefs' history of paying their star players who are aging veterans as being the most important thing to watch here. Because again, Chris Jones, these guys sit in the same locker room with the same dudes. And when Tyreek Hill is gone and Tyrann Mathieu is gone and Eric Fisher is gone and Mitchell Schwartz is gone, he's thinking about getting everything he can. He'd love to be the Chiefs. I'm sure he'd love that. But he's also thinking, this is my last big contract. I want to get everything I can get. And my market value will never be higher than what it is. And so two guys in that locker room where the biggest stars are taking discounts. I just don't know if Chris Jones is that kind of guy. That's where the mystery lies. That's where the issue could lie. What kind of guy is Chris Jones when it comes to wanting to be with the Chiefs versus wanting to be paid as much as he can get paid.
Real quick, Tommy said 20%. You're at 10%.
That's true. I thought about that too.
I'll restate it because I obviously wasn't clear if both of you guys had that reaction. If Tommy had that reaction, I'd say he was wrong. If Jeff had that reaction, I clearly didn't state it clearly. My original thought was 10%, right, which isn't very much. But upon giving it a little more thought, there's always things I don't know. And so if I figure you kind of double whatever you think it's at. I think about 20%. Is where it is. Like, there's about a 1 in 5 chance. I do think of the fact that I think Chris Jones is a sensitive guy, and I mean that as a positive, not as a negative. But I think he has an expectation, and I think he'll be a little frustrated and hurt if it's not getting done the way he wants to. And
is he closer to Tyrann Mathieu in personality, or is he closer to Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes in personality?
Mathieu.
Yeah. And so remember what Tyrann Mathieu said when he was gone to Sam McDowell? I would have taken what they gave Justin Reid.
Yeah.
After the fact, he was regretting it. Now, I don't think
we've already seen this
problem.
Yeah. We've seen this a number of times, right? Juan Thornhill signed for less than I bet you the Chiefs offered him.
Orlando Brown.
McCole Hardman signed for God knows less than what the Chiefs offered him.
Orlando Brown. I mean,
Orlando Brown. Like, the Chiefs are and this is great, right? So the Chiefs are a championship team. They've made, we don't even have to go over this, but like they've been the class of the NFL for 5 years. You get one shot, and Chris Jones is a very good. Chris Jones is maybe an exception, right? But you don't get that many times to go back to the window with them and negotiate, right? I think for like middling players like Mathieu had become, it's a one and done situation. I think for Jones, it's a couple times, right? They probably have offered him, a reasonable contract, and he's balked at it, and they're kind of like, oh, okay, well, they like pretending. Well, let's assume that they're pretending they didn't know he'd show up, right? Pretending they don't know where he is. That's like just another negotiating play.
Yeah, I think there's an element to that. When does it get done? If you had to put a date on it, Eric, when does it get done, or does it not?
Let's say 1 month from now, July 20th.
Okay. Jeff?
Similar to when it got done last time with him.
I think if it gets done in August in training camp.
I think he's asking for more. He's older, which makes it more of a delicate negotiation.
Yeah. But I also feel like I think there's more of a chance that it doesn't happen, and he ends up like Tyreek Hill and Tyrann Mathieu going someplace else.
More than 20%?
Yeah, but not much more. Maybe 25%, 30%.
Roughly down the same range. Not 50.
I could see a road. I could see a road where it could go south.
I'm with you, and I do think that if he overshoots his mark on what it is, and because I think there's also more of a trade market for him. I don't think it's what the Chiefs would want it to be, but I think there's more of a trade market for him. I think the difference is, though, he's better at his position, which is more of a need position than Tyrann Mathieu was. He's also younger than Tyrann Mathieu still, at only 29 years old. All those are reasons why I think we would decide it probably gets done when it's all said and done. We're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. They're hiring all positions, project managers, truck drivers, operators, crew members, starting pay up to $30 per hour based on experience, pay time off, insurance. Yep, you get all those benefits and more. Check out GannAsphalt.com for more info. How good can this defense be, Eric, when it's all said and done? What kind of floor, what kind of ceiling are you looking at? Let's assume Chris Jones gets signed. What's the upside?
I mean, top 6 defense in the NFL, right? I mean, that we've flirted with this idea. I remember I had the brilliant call of saying they were a really good defense going into 2021. Then they were historically bad, and then turned it around, to become average-ish. Last year, we argued over whether they were good enough to win the Super Bowl defensively. Where did they end last year, you guys? Top 12, maybe?
I think they're 11 yards allowed.
Yeah, so like you add a year of Karlaftis, Amenahu's an upgrade over Clark. Felix is just a good addition. Linebackers, you get Tranquil for Gay. That's an upgrade in my opinion. And then you have a secondary full of players. I think it could go either way, but if it goes positively for those corners, like I think this is a top tier defense in the NFL.
On that front, talking about the corners, that's one of the things Andy Reid mentioned today, late last week when he was talking about the defensive backs, all the rookie defensive backs having a second year.
Yeah, they know what they're doing now, which is a big plus. This time last year, everything was new to them, and there were quite a few busts. You don't see those right now. They're pretty sound with what they're doing there. I like the improvement that they've made.
Bust, he means busted coverage, is what he's talking about. I don't think he meant that they were sculpting the guys, for Canton already. Jeff, where do you think the ceiling is, and how much do those defensive backs having some experience, give you more confidence in what they can be?
I think they're top 10. I won't go to top 5. I think if you're going to be a top 5 defense, you got to have a lot of Pro Bowl level players. You got to have a lot of game changing players in you gotta have a Michael Parsons type guy or a Trayvon Diggs type player, or, people of that caliber. But yeah, certainly top 10 because they're well coached. They know the system. They're athletic. They've got smart players in the right spots, like Nick Bolton, Chris Jones. You want to be strong up the middle on defense, and they have that. The only thing that to me I'm not as sold on them being exceptional just because I think they have a lot of good players and not great players. And so I just don't know how good is George Karlaftis going to be, or Menahue, or FAU. Some of these younger guys in the secondary, they played well in spurts, but they had moments when they didn't look that great. People forget that down the road. I mean, they were clutch, but they also were, when you go into your second year, people have more film on you. They know how to attack you. And so what will that look like? As much as people talk about the AFC Championship game and the plays made there, they were doubling everybody. And so that's the thing. Can these corners hold up in man coverage? Can they get pressure up front with some of these young guys? Those are the things you want to see from a top tier.
Yeah, if you bring up a good point, I think the chance that this team defensively is dominant is small, to your point, because they don't have, Derek Thomas. They don't have a Justin Houston type. They don't have a Von Miller type. But I also think the chance that this defense is terrible is pretty low as well. It's almost the likelihood that the chance this team is terrible defensively is basically the likelihood that there are a certain number of injuries. Because I think they have too many options at all these different positions to be bad. You have 3 starting caliber linebackers for 2 spots. You have about 6 starting caliber defensive linemen for 4 spots. You have, 7 or 8 starting caliber defense. Now the second safety spot's an interesting one. But it's funny because just 2 years ago, they were unathletic. They didn't have depth defensively. And now I agree with you 100%. They don't have that. Chris Jones is the only premier player on that defense, and it's not at edge or some game corner, some game breaking position. But I also think for what they're trying to do defensively, it's perfect because their defense isn't a shoot the moon defense. They don't need a 2015 Denver Broncos defense to win the Super Bowl. They just simply need to have a top 12 defense. And I think that they've positioned themselves where not having a top 12 defense will be pretty difficult for them.
Jeff, you know what they look like? They remind me of the Bengals defense. That's what they look like. Mm-hmm. They look exactly like the Bengals defense, which is a good defense.
Yeah, which is a good, how many games has the Bengals defense lost in the last 2 years?
Yeah. Jeff, I wanted to ask you about the corners because that's something we talked about before. I mean, the idea that it's a second year, so they're just automatically better, right? That the experience is going to play. How much is experience? How much is it is just raw athleticism and ability? Flip your hips, all those things. And how much does the experience, have you ever seen a guy who completely sucked and then 2 years later, because of experience, was really good? Or do you get a guy who's really good and he gets a little bit better?
You generally, whatever guys are, they kind of either go up incrementally or they just flatline. I think about the guy who we always talk about when Andy showed up, who was the corner who had the big first half. Yeah, Marcus Cooper. A guy. They just ask so much of their corners, right? They ask them to do a lot of things in man coverage that put a lot of pressure on them. And so when they are going to look good defensively, it's when the pass rush is really good or when the pressure package is really good. And so when you have bigger corners like they have, that's what I want to see. These guys like Watson or who's the other kid, 23? I forget his
Joshua
name.
Williams.
Joshua Williams, yeah. Big corners get double moved a lot. And so when you're dealing with the Jamar Chases of the world, the Stephon Diggs of the world, we forget that stuff when they win the championship. But those guys were having problem with those receivers during the season. And so I'm curious to see how that plays out for them.
Yeah, that makes sense a lot.
The Chiefs' approach to corner is like similar to their approach on Chris Jones. Like, let's not dilly-dally here. Let's get the truth out as quickly as possible. Can Marcus Cooper play? We found out that in 4 games. Nothing is left to suspense.
No. Here we go. Strap yourselves in. We're going to go. We're going to put you out there, which is a little bit that's the one position that perhaps they do that. Everywhere else, people criticize that Spagnuolo won't play the young players, right? That's the common theme there. Patrick Mahomes clapping back at Jamar Chase. The ultimate tweet. Jamar Chase says something. He does nothing. Waits 2 days till he gets his ring, takes a picture of both his rings, sends it out there. That's the ultimate clap back, is it not, Jeff? And does it add to what is now the biggest and best rivalry in all of sports?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I always take this stuff with a grain of salt because it doesn't really mean anything until guys start playing. And so clearly the Bengals love to talk, and they're going to keep talking no matter what the situation is. And the Chiefs love talking back. They love getting hyped up over it. And this is starting to shape up to be like Cowboys, Niners, like Patriots, Colts. It has that. All the elements are there, and I'm here for it because it's the Bengals. 3 years ago, nobody thought they were going to be anything, and 2 years ago, people thought they were lucky, but they legitimately feel like they can win a championship and they can go through the Chiefs, and the Chiefs feel like, and the Chiefs know this is the team we got to deal with. But everybody else out there, Buffalo, the Chargers, Eagles, whoever it is you want to talk about, like, this is the team that we got to deal with. And so I love it because Joe Burrow's pretty good.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase is pretty good. Bengals are pretty good.
Best rivalry in sports, Eric? You like the reaction from Mahomes?
I'm not that familiar with the other sports, but it's the best rivalry in the NFL. I do find it, not to be a homer, not to be a Chiefs homer, I do find it funny that the legacy of this current Bengals, I feel like the legacy of this current Bengals team is preventing Mahomes from playing in 4 straight Super Bowls. They're awfully haughty for that as being the pinnacle of what they've achieved. I think let's tuck 1 Super Bowl before we start talking all that mess to Mr. Chase. But yeah, no, it's a great rivalry. Burrow's good to the point that Jeff made. They're going to have it's also funny that they're talking that crap when they have to get all the contracts resolved, and the Chiefs just got all their contracts resolved and beat them. But yeah, it's a cool rivalry. I think it's fun. Cincinnati was terrible at football when I arrived there. They're great now that I've left. Value add me.
What a jackass. It is the best rivalry.
Petro under his breath using the 1 swear word we have on jackass.
Yeah, it is the best rivalry in sports. It's not the most storied or tradition rich. Lakers Celtics has more, Red Sox Yankees has more, but right now the 2 teams playing at the highest level with no end in sight to their run at being at the highest level, with good history amongst them, with it being conference championship games we're not talking about some turd 14th game in the regular season. Yay, it's Sunday Night Baseball, and the Yankees and Red Sox are playing for one of their 48 times they're going to play on Sunday Night Baseball this year. Whoop-de-doo. When these teams play, it means something. It's for the number 1 seed in the AFC. It's for the conference championship. They have been massive games. Both of them have been at the top of their game. Both of them will continue to be at the top of the game with maybe the 2 biggest stars in the sport. Tell me where else that is. It doesn't exist anywhere else.
Well, and for it to be really great, you have to have somebody be established as the dominant team, and the other team's got to be like the underdog, like cocky, arrogant. Like when Cowboys Niners kicked off in the 80s, the Cowboys were the dominant team, and the Niners were the young team coming along trying to make their mark. Then it flipped when the Cowboys were the Niners were that team, and then the Cowboys were trying to beat them up. It's like Jimmy Johnson sounded a lot like Jamar Chase did back in the day. Michael Irvin, these guys, they wanted it. And so you're not knocking the king off just by being passive and trying to say all the right things. You gotta show it with some swagger.
You see that they have not won anything as a positive for the rivalry, whereas I'm seeing at more of like
they won the AFC 2 years ago. They won a Super Bowl.
They beat the Chiefs 3 out of 4 times. Burrow.
Yeah.
They won 2 regular season games by a field goal. They won Mahomes' worst game by a field goal.
They won the AFC Championship.
The AFC title game. We were lucky to be in that game because the Chiefs were
I cannot believe
it's okay to say they won.
So the Bills really won in Arrowhead back in 20 because it was it was only 13 seconds.
The Chiefs were a 4th and 13 stop away from that game not only being over but going under the total. We talk about that game like it happened, everything up to 13 seconds. The Chiefs should have won that game. They outplayed Buffalo in that game too. The Chiefs, the hallmark of the Chiefs in the playoffs in the last 3 years, has been thoroughly outplaying their AFC rivals, letting them MFers back into the game, and then in some cases still pulling it out, and in other cases like the AFC title game of 2021, pissing it down their leg completely. That the Chiefs outplayed the Bills big time in that divisional round game. They outplayed the Bengals in the AFC title game. They literally could have had a 17-point lead at one point in that game if it weren't for some messed up plays on their end. So
I cannot. I'm going to get this out now because when we do our Too Deep NFL podcast, our sister podcast, if you're an NFL fan, I'm gonna get it heavy from Eager. Right, because I know one of the things I've got on my list is not going to be met with approval from him. So I'm just going to say right now, I do have to appreciate and applaud that you are the analytics guy and supposed to be analytical, and you are the most stone cold homer red and gold glasses looking guy when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, Eric. I have to just stand.
I'm sorry, the Chiefs had a win probability at one point in all those games above 75%.
Numbers go out the window. The easiest math we can do. They played 4 times. The Bengals have won 75% of the games.
It's too simple, Jeff. That's for simpletons like us. The doctorate over there. Yeah. He's digging deeper into what really matters.
That's right. That AFC Championship was.
No, what really matters to the Chiefs have 2 Super Bowls the last 5 years. The Bengals have dick. They have nothing. That's what matters.
They had 6 wins the first
you
2
get
years of that 5 year.
Put it on the web, Petro. That's what matters.
Geez, I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. All right, let's end on a fun note. By the way, we're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Listen, there's nothing worse than you go into a business. I went to a place and tried to park, and you it was like gridlock with like 3 cars. Get your parking lot people. People, get your parking lots right. Gann Asphalt and Concrete can do it. Make sure you tell them that you heard about them right here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Full service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems are problems no more. They've been making them disappear since 1994 with free consultations, no commissions, and in-house crews, plus a written warranty with every project. What are you waiting for? Call Gann Asphalt and Concrete at 816-484-3338. Online at GannAsphalt.com. A couple more. I want to hear from Andy Reid and from Patrick Mahomes. First of all, we got the big quarterback show coming to Netflix. Chiefs fans are going to love it because Patrick Mahomes is going to be featured. And I don't think there's any way that Marcus Mariota and Kirk Cousins are going to outshine Patrick Mahomes. This is Mahomes talking about the Netflix show that's right around the corner.
Yeah, I wanted to for sure be able to have some editing rights because I've realized that I'm kind of wild on the field. Like I don't even remember the things that I say, but I'm a competitor. That's just who I am. And so it was cool to be able to go through that process. And obviously having Peyton and his company, I have full trust in them. But thanks to the Chiefs and Coach Reid for letting us do it throughout the season. I've watched pretty much all of it. It's gonna be cool for everybody to see, and there's a lot more of the I'm like that stuff in there that I left in there. So I'm gonna try to, but I couldn't leave it all in there because I say a lot of wild stuff out there.
And then let's hear Andy Reid as to why he let this production actually go on.
I don't know if I'll watch it, but he handled himself right, so it didn't affect anybody. And those guys did a nice job of kind of staying away. Everything was distant, or our own people, working through our own people here. So it wasn't a distraction. Like some of those things can be a distraction. This wasn't a distraction. And, whatever turns up. But it's, he handled it the right way.
All right, Jeff, your reaction to that?
I don't really understand what the show is. And so do we know what that is? Has there been some kind of
I think this is the latest, although the Peyton Manning production company part I'm a little curious about, but I think this is the latest Netflix attempt to capitalize on what has been an immensely successful show in the F1 Drive to Survive. It's a behind the scenes. It's doing Hard Knocks better, but focusing in on one part. They did it with Formula One, and that show is being credited with the explosion in popularity for Formula One racing. They've done it with the PGA Tour. They've done it with tennis. It's called Breakpoint, and they go behind the scenes and get access to the biggest stars. And it's what you wish, what Hard Knocks kind of was in the beginning, getting real behind the scenes access. And I think that's what we're going to find out. It could also be that they're just like, listen, this is wildly popular, and even if we can't do it, the thing that jumped at me was, Patrick Mahomes' production company's involved in this. Like, and Andy Reid says, well, it didn't affect anyone. He handled his business. I'll tell you what it did. It made Patrick happy, right? Like that's the thing that I hear.
I didn't even know he had a production company.
Either.
What's he producing?
I guess. And maybe the production company is him. It's one guy, and I want to see everything you're going to put in there before you put it in there. But
maybe it's like the guy in Kevin Hart and Along Came Polly, where he just has his own crew, like he just pays his lackeys to walk around with that.
But I think whatever it is, it's clear he wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And to the Chiefs' credit, I'm going to tell you, there is no way on earth Andy Reid wanted that there. If he could have gotten rid of it, he would have. But to his credit, it speaks to his ability to manage his personnel and to understand the importance of Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes maybe didn't have a production company before this, and maybe it's one or two people, but he wanted it. And Andy Reid let it happen. And I think that's pretty smart, because you can't deny it did not affect them. They won the championship while these cameras were rolling.
Yeah. But it sounds like the way they shot it, like all the Chiefs people were doing the work inside. So it wasn't like there was some kind of big conflict with other people in the locker room. I'm kind of like skeptical of anything like this anymore. Like even Hard Knocks is tough to pull off, because I think you get a very vanilla version of it. I mean, be honest with you, if he's talking about his brother and they're showing some of that stuff, I'm all about seeing that. I'd love to see some of that. But if it's just talking about practice and running curl routes, like I don't know how interesting that's going to be. It's
telling Marquez to stick his hands up.
Yeah. But it's going to get huge views. Obviously, he's got a huge audience. It's going to be compelling for Chiefs fans. But I don't know if maybe it's a sign, like you said, of Andy Reid mellowing and realizing it's important for different kind of players have different kind of needs. But I don't know if I might miss it too.
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to miss it. I can't miss it, because I guarantee you every time there's an episode out, Yazoo Jay is going to be calling me as soon as it's over to break it down the next day. I will be watching it. And so will Eric. Don't kid yourself. He'll be watching it. I don't want to hear anything to the contrary. All right, that's going to do it. Remember, we're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lots. If you need any work done on a parking lot, they've been making parking lot problems disappear in KC since 1994. Find them online right now at GannAsphalt.com. They're also hiring. So if you're in the market for a new gig, why not join one of the fastest growing, best companies in Kansas City? I'm talking about Gann Asphalt and Concrete, online at GannAsphalt.com. So for Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Eric Eager from Sumer Sports, Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold.